Alright, this is going to be a quick build video. I'm going to try to answer some questions. First, I'm going to get into the gear. I'm not going to go too in depth because there's another video before this. But this whole thing was designed to enhance my physical penetration. You get physical penetrations from the Krog's mask. I got one piece of that. I also got 4 pieces of Night Mother, as well as Night Mother weapons to complete the 5-piece. The other pieces I have are the Spriggans. Got 2 pieces of medium, and I've also got the jewelry to complete the 5 pieces of Spriggans. I've also got everything enchanted in weapon damage. Now, altogether, with the champion points, I have probably about 7,900 physical penetration. That's a rough number, but that's about what I came up with. Now that that's out of the way, I don't really have to worry so much about penetration on the weapons. Now, in this patch, the sharpen got nerfed quite a bit. It's about half of what it used to be. But that's okay because the infused trait got buffed. Now I use disease and I use poison. Now, typically you can use either one, but I use these two, the reason being, if you look in the champion points, physical, poison, and disease damage increased by 12%. So that's where you want to be. Now, if you were a Magicka character, you would want to enchant along these lines: Flame, Frost, Shock, and magic damage. Now, another thing I was asked about is which skills I use. Now, on my two-handed bar I have Executioner, Critical Rush, Dizzying Swing, Volatile Armor. This is important because it gives me a little bit more physical resistance, and it also gives me an additional 12% healing received while I have one of these active. So it helps quite a bit in dungeons and that sort of thing. This is an important skill. Forward momentum, you can use rally, it gives you more healing. This will get you out of snares and that sort of thing. I use this quite a bit. It also heals you over time, and it gives you major brutality, something that's really necessary to this build or any stamina build. Going over here, I have Molten Armaments. This gives you an additional 40% damage in heavy attacks. Now, if you go into my champion points, I also have another 25% here, so I have about 65% additional damage from my fully charged heavy attacks. And fully charged heavy attacks will restore stamina, and it will restore ultimate. Now, I'm going to show you 2 separate attacks. One of them, I'm going to use my typical skills seen on the bar, and on the other guy, I'm going to use primarily heavy attacks. So first, Molten Armaments, forward momentum, then I'm going to crit rush into the enemy. That hit me. Okay, that was primarily a heavy attack. As you can see, my stamina bar is full. What I'm going to do is go ahead and waste that ultimate so that it can build up again. Now, go ahead and hit this guy. I'm going to use primarily my normal skills. Now, as you can see, my stamina bar is right at about half, so as you can imagine, you know, you get into a long and serious fight in a dungeon or something like that, you would run out of stamina pretty quickly. My stamina recovery isn't really all that great, but it doesn't really matter. As a DK, you can really get around that. My ultimate is about 45% charged at this point. Now, what I'm going to do is come over here. I'm going to try the heavy attacks on this guy and see how it goes. Now, as you can see, my stamina bar is at full. My ultimate is just about charged at this point. So this is how I do the dungeons. I'll get in and I'll alternate between heavy attacks and regular attacks. My heavy attacks, the way I have this set up, is pretty much just as effective, if not more, than my normal attacks. Let's try these guys. Okay, as you can see, my ultimate built up quite a bit there. I'm ready to go again. You also notice just how quick my glyphs procced. They were proccing it right at around 4.3 to 7.2k. Let's try this again on these guys. Notice how many times my glyphs proc. I'm just going to kind of count them out to you as we go. 4.2, 4.0, 4.2, 4.3, 4.0, 4.2, 7.2, and we're done. Now, as you can see, it said it reduced the cooldown time of this, but I don't think there's any cooldown time. I think it just goes off, and the chances of these glyphs hitting are pretty good. Now you have this, plus you have the bleed passives. Your axes give you a 16% chance to apply bleed, dealing of 8,900 Buff this up and see where it's at. Now we're at 99.24. So as you can see, you come against enemies, and you can do this in PvP. You hit them with the bleed, you hit them with the glyphs, and you come over here and you hit them with Venomous Claw. You're gonna be doing a lot of passive damage. The steel with the glyphs is really something else. It will really destroy enemies, and I know firsthand. I was out there, and it really is something else. I think this is about the strongest build I've had so far. So just remember, this is primarily a heavy attack build. As a DK, you're using this. Now, in a dungeon, when you're fighting a monster or something like that, I like to use this. This will keep you alive in combination with Vigor. Vigor keeps you alive, and this keeps you alive. This will give you healing. This will give you damage over time. Now what I like to do is keep my stamina up with heavy attacks, keep it relatively full, and then say they spawn, you know, a bunch of little monsters or something like that where I need some AoE. That's fine, I'll switch to Steel Tornado and run them out that way. I also use the ultimate Dawnbreaker of Smiting. That's pretty effective. I also have a gap closer. Take Flight is a real nice gap closer, and it does a lot of damage. My other gap closer is Critical Rush. This one hits for about 17k on normal enemies like here in Craglorn or elsewhere. On players it's a bit less, but you know, typically I'll gap close with this, switch to this bar, I'll hit him with a Venomous Claw. This will also slow him down a little bit, and the reason for that is this passive here. You reduce the enemy's speed by 30% for 4 seconds. So this is nice to have if you have an enemy dancing around you. This is a good way to slow him down. So basically that's what I do, typically in a dungeon or somewhere else. I'll go crit rush in. Look at that hit for 7.2k. As you can see, that went pretty quick. I'll do this one more time. 4.2k there. So there wasn't a lot of difference in time between using the heavy attacks and the regular attacks. So as you can see, this works really well. And as far as sustain goes, basically with this I have infinite sustain. As a DK, using your ultimate gives you sustain as well. And using anything in the Earthenheart tree will give you sustain as well. Not much, but it gives you some. So just remember, armaments, 4 for momentum or rally. And we're done. As you can see on the heavy attacks, enemies that are close together gives you a good bit of splash damage as well, which is always nice to have. I guess that's about it. Just keep in mind when you're going into a dungeon or something like that, you're gonna want to keep your stamina up. I'll show you in a minute here. Okay, I ran myself out of stamina. Good start. For momentum. Now, as you can see, my stamina bar got fully restored from that little fight, as well as my building ultimate. So basically I'm ready to go again. Typically what I'll do is I'll spam heavy attacks, and when something happens, like say a monster spawns a whole bunch of other little monsters, I'll go into normal attack mode. I'll give them an AoE like Steel Tornado, or a lot of the time what I'll do is Dawn Break, knock everybody down, do damage that way, and then give them a Steel Tornado or something along those lines. And that usually clears them out pretty quickly. But yeah, I gotta say this build is probably my strongest yet. It gives all kinds of penetration, and the glyphs just proc all the time. I'll show you guys one more time on this guy here. Now, if you'll notice on the center of the screen, I'll kind of call them out to you as I go along. 7.2 crit, 4.2, 7.2, 4.2, 7.2, 4.2, 4.2. Now, as you can see, that the way these proc is really just incredible. They proc all the time. I used to want to get like a proc set. I was aiming for that before until I discovered this. Now I don't really even need it. I've gone against players with this, and it's really worked out really well. So anyway, I hope this helps, and when you're out there in a dungeon, just remember you'll want this up, and it stays up for a long time, about 40 seconds. You want to keep that active. You want to keep forward momentum active, giving you major brutality. You're going to want to keep that up. And yeah, just use heavy attacks. As you can see, my tree is pretty spread out as far as the what I think works. I've done some trial and error with this. First, your base damage, you're going to want Mighty and Master at Arms. These two seem to work really well. precise strikes, my critical strikes, it give me an additional 20% damage. I've got a little bit into piercing, which gives me a little penetration, but you know, quite honestly, I have enough already. So basically, you can see where I am and see what this does, why I built the way I did. Now, I've also tried using this build with just one piece of heavy armor, and I found that I wasn't tanky enough, or not tanky enough to my liking. So I went with 2 pieces. And of course, this tri-stat glyphs will give you more stats as well. So I've used tri-stat glyphs. Another thing you're going to want is under your heavy armor, have all your passives filled out. It gives you health and that sort of thing, and you're going to want to keep that up. So looks like a couple of these gargoyles have respawned. I'm going to go ahead and give another demonstration. See, that went pretty quick, and you can count the number of times that my glyphs procced. Yeah, as you can see, they proc quite a few times, so that's what really makes this build strong. There's that, and then there's the bleed passive. Once that hits, basically it's all over. I hope this has helped some of you, and answer some of your questions about why I can do what I can do. And I guess I'll see you guys out there. Take care. Bye.